Well, hey there, my sweet little magnolias. How are y'all doing? I want to do a teaching on empaths. This is something my spirit team was talking to me about and showed me some things, and I was very impressed that I needed to share what they shared with me with y'all. So, I don't know if you know, but there are 3 different types of empaths as I understand it currently. Not to say that it's wrong, just to say that it might evolve as I learn more. But right now, as I understand what my spirit team has been telling me, there are 3 different types of empaths. There's the empath, the dark empath or the shadow empath, and then the sovereign empath. So as you might suspect, the empath is the baby. Most of the people I meet who are empathic fall into this category. They are very highly sensitive, and they know it, but they don't know what to do with it. I was in that phase for years. And let me give you some key characteristics of the baby empath phase. You're very highly sensitive, intuitive, but you read everyone. And that's not very nice. It's kind of rude, actually, in a spiritual relationship, even if you don't know them. But in the spiritual realm, that's kind of rude. It's kind of like if you were to go up to someone at a party that you had never met and ask them a bunch of super personal questions. You wouldn't do that. It's the same way in the spirit realm. You don't just read anybody. You're led by the spirit of who you can and cannot read. Also, in the baby empath phase, you're very easily overwhelmed by other people's emotions. You don't know how to set boundaries. You don't understand what your own emotions are versus what you're picking up from the people in the room. And oftentimes you get confused. You do a lot of self-sacrifice because you feel like it's your job to fix everybody and that they were put in your path for you to fix. And it's often a time that's marked by people-pleasing and, then, like I said, the need to fix everyone. I call that the save the world syndrome. And they don't understand in this phase that they're not everybody's Jesus. It's hard for them to separate out who the universe has put in their path to teach them something, who the universe has put in their path for them to help. It's hard for them to discern that. So they just try to help everybody. And in doing so, they get exhausted and overwhelmed. And then oftentimes it leaves these baby empaths open, I know it did for me, to abuse from narcissists, because you attract toxic people into your life. Users, abusers, narcissists, any kind of toxic person, because they can sense that you are easily manipulated and controlled because you want to fix them and you want to please them and you want to make them happy and you want to give them a good life. Another thing too is a lot of baby empaths, they feed off that being needed. It makes them feel good to be needed. It makes them feel good to be, and oftentimes they confuse being needed with being loved or being wanted. So they feed off of that being needed, and they feel like, oh, that's them loving me, that's them desiring me, that's them wanting me, but it's not. It's them using you. So this is the phase that a lot of empathic people get stuck in, and then they just say, you know, fuck this empath shit. It sucks. I hate knowing everything. It's a curse. Yeah, I used to feel that same way. But then I grew. So the next phase is the dark empath, or also known as the shadow empath. And it typically begins, this phase, after years of abuse, of trauma, of self-sacrifice, of being taken advantage of by narcissists and toxic abusers and users. And you wake up and you realize, fuck this shit. And then you start seeking answers and relief from all of those terrible feelings, and you start doing your shadow work. That's why this phase is called either the dark empath or the shadow empath. You start looking at yourself. You start seeing areas where you have been doing too much, where you have been giving too much. And in this phase, during the shadow work, you start healing, and you start developing the ability to set boundaries. You stop reading everybody in the room. And then you're more easily able to identify the manipulators and the liars, to recognize the red flags. And because you're not randomly reading people, you develop a way to control when and who you read, and you become very self-aware, and you practice a lot of self-care, and you do a lot of healing, inner child healing, past trauma healing, because you, at this point, are maintaining a very strong connection with spirit, and you frequently hermit yourself when you need a reset. And so this phase of the empath journey is so important. But let me tell you a little secret. You don't have to go through years and years and years of the baby empath phase to get to this phase. You can just start doing the work now. You don't have to wait until you are beaten and defeated and overwhelmed and exhausted to begin the work. You can do it now. It's okay. And then the final phase of the empath journey, at least as I understand it now, is you develop through this dark empath journey, you develop into a sovereign empath. What is that? Well, it's an empath who is in control of their own emotions and their own life. Instead of knee-jerk reacting, they thoughtfully respond. They're not triggered. They're in charge of their own emotions. They don't allow people to control them or manipulate them. They know how to set boundaries, and they know how to hold boundaries. They practice compassion without becoming overwhelmed and drained, because they know when to pull back. They also recognize when it's a lost cause and it's time to walk away. You've done everything you can possibly do for this person. And another thing is they recognize who is not for them, who they are not called to help. You know, this is not my issue. They know how to walk away, and they are always their authentic self. They speak their truth without apology. So, knowing all of that, what phase do you think you're in? Let me know what you think. Ask me any questions you want. And I look forward to hearing your thoughts on this teaching about the journey of the empath, from baby empath through the dark shadow empath to the sovereign empath. Where are you on that journey? All right, love y'all. Hope that helps. See you next time.